plants, and I'm meant to be the world's expert, or one of the world's experts on wetlands. Ireland has some of the world's most famous wetlands of the lot. They're called peat bogs. And so one of the first places I had to come was to go in Ireland. And I've been coming back ever since. It's a very, very special place. It has a very special climate, of course, being so close to the Atlantic. And we used to call it the Gulf Stream when I was at school. We now call it the North Atlantic Drift, which brings warm water all the way across the Gulf of Mexico and keeps us quite warm and moderately frost-free. The second amazing thing about Northern Ireland is that it has one of those fantastic coastlines, I think, in the whole world. I'm a lucky guy. I travel the world most of the time. I think I've been to every country in the world, not every island, but every country. But the Northern Antrim coastline going all the way back to the Giant Causeway is a very special place. Everyone knows about the Giant Causeway, but of course, I'm on to Antrim. And there's something special all the way along. I once actually walked from the Giant Causeway all the way round the corner until I came actually to the border with Ireland. And I actually owned a peat box in County Leitrim. And I suppose if you're going to speak someone who studies wetlands, and Ireland has the most famous wetlands in the world, it's very wonderful to actually own those pieces of people. And I suppose it was coming on this, to Northern Ireland, and at one time I actually applied for the job as professor at the new university it was, not very far away in Colvane. I didn't get the job. But I thought I'd like to because people nearby. I'm also a diver. I like going diving, and there's some wonderful coastline down here to go diving. So you do live in a very, very special place. That's why I keep going back. But why should I be here in DuPont? I'm a conservationist. I stood on picket lines to try and stop things happening. I've actually been thrown in prison a couple of times because the people I was trying to stop things happening didn't actually like what I said. So what am I doing in a big chemical? Well, DuPont have a very, very long history of making extremely useful things. And who is not wearing lycra? Do you know what lycra is? I'm sure you do. It's wonderful stretchy fabric. And I think I suddenly realised how important industry was when I was trying to help the Russian people who had decided they had to grow an awful lot of cotton. And they asked all their scientists in the Presenium science, where is the best place to grow cotton? And they said, around the Aral Sea. When you go back to school, you try and find out where the Aral Sea is. And they're called Uzbekistan, used to be part of Russia. And their scientists warned them, don't do that. If you grow cotton there, you're going to dry up the Aral Sea. And the Aral Sea is a very big sea, and it was the best fisheries in the world. It had marvellous fisheries. And the Russian Parliament said, no, we need this cotton because we've got lots of people, they all like wearing cotton jeans, so they planted the cotton. I'm telling you exactly what happened. The Aral Sea shrunk, and all the fisheries disappeared. In fact, the Russians now fish up in the Atlantic and bring all the fish down to the Aral Sea to can it, so they can keep the factory working there. And that made me suddenly realise every tonne of cotton we grow, how many tonnes of water do you think it takes? So 1 tonne of cotton, that's a lot of energy. Would you like to have a guess? Sorry? Yeah. 1,700 tonnes to make 1 tonne of cotton. So you can see why the Aral Sea shrunk, because the Aral Sea is, it doesn't have, it's like a big frying pan, and all the water comes down into it and it stays there. So it's taking the water out to grow cotton, and the Aral Sea shrunk, and one of the best fisheries in the whole world disappeared. And when you start to think, do you know how many people there are in the world now? 6 billion. We don't have a blackboard, do it? I really should be writing all these things down, big numbers. 6 billion people. So 6 billion pairs of jeans, that's a lot of pairs of jeans, isn't it? And that is why synthetic chemicals are so important. And now, one of the most important things, we're finding a lot of those synthetic products we have, like plastic, can actually be recycled again and again. I wish I thought it today. I didn't know I was going to be talking to you, but I have a shirt, and if I showed you, you say it's made of cotton. And it was actually made from a full Mondeo air ducting, which was made of plastic. And that full Mondeo air ducting was actually made from a Coca-Cola plastic bottle made out of PET. And if my shirt ever wears out, I'm going to give it back to Ford and I'll make it into a new shirt for me. Now, you see, so we can come to a state where we can recycle these things again and again and again. Now we don't use too much energy at recycling. We can, all have all the clothes and all the things we need. Now, that is why I like coming to DuPont, because DuPont over the last 10 years have been trying to show the way how to be an environmentally friendly chemical type. They're going to have problems. They use energy, and if they don't look after their plant very, very well, and that means having people who have good education and understand the chemical process, then of course it could cause pollution and things. But if you get the plant crops, we don't have to go more and more and more cotton all the time. We can make synthetic chemicals to actually allow us to have clothing. And if you know what life is, it's wonderful clean stuff. And it really does shape yourself. When you see the Spice Girls dance, and I'm quite sure quite a lot of them are wearing lycra. And cotton won't do that, or you can make cotton do that, but it again takes a lot of energy. So that's why a wetland ecologist am here in DuPont, because I go around the world meeting people the whole time, and people write to me and say we have a problem. And then one goes along and one finds that scientists can usually solve those problems. And I like being a scientist, and I'll ask you, how many of you think you might be scientists? It's interesting, 10 years ago, if I'd have asked that question, we got one or two people. Half the people said, I want to be a scientist. But they don't want to be scientists these days. And that is very, very dangerous thing, because the whole of the world around runs on science. I'm a scientist who studies botany. Some of the people who work on this plant are scientists who study chemical engineering. Now, okay, what am I made of? Tell me. What is the main chemical I'm made of? Huh? Right? So, I'm going to tell you what the main chemical I'm made of is. No? Well, it's carbon, it's hydrogen, it's oxygen. And I've got more oxygen in me than any of these other things. And where do I get the chemicals that made me from? Plants, yeah, but I get them from food. Where does the food come from? You were right, plants. Although we go to the supermarket, don't we? Right? Yeah, and you've got to get it from somewhere. So we are made, and we're made of a very, very special stuff, and most important stuff. If you took all the water out of me, I'd be a little heap of dry dust on the floor. I wouldn't be able to do all the marvellous things I think I do. I wouldn't be able to talk to you, I wouldn't be able to move about. Water's very important. But it's the carbon that actually makes our structure. And carbon is a very, very funny substance, because it can hold on to 4 other carbon atoms. They all link up. David Bellamy made of carbon, not oxygen and hydrogen all stuck together. And what the chemical industry has done is allowed us to look into the future, when we will be able to use more and more different chemicals in different ways. And what DuPont is trying to do, and still trying to do, is show how we can have the benefit of using the chemicals the world made of without causing any problems. And like all things in the past, new ideas have caused problems, and we have to solve the problem. And that's why, and DuPont were one of the first chemical companies in the whole world to say they were going to try and call no pollution at all in the future. And everyone said, it's impossible to do. Well, it probably is impossible to do. Perhaps in 100 years' time, they will be able to say that, they'll be able to say that with their hand on their heart. They've been actually leading the way to finding a clean chemical industry. Now, who in this room has never thrown any litter away? You've never thrown any litter away? Goodness, don't. Well, let me shake hands. Let anyone. I throw this away. I have to think about it. You unwrap a sweet, and sometimes you don't put it in your pocket, you throw it away. But we all produce waste all the time, and this is a great problem. We produce so much waste not only in Britain but here in England and Scotland, but here in Northern Ireland. That it is a problem, and again, the chemical industries are showing us new ways of dealing with that waste. So all the time we are moving and thinking at long last. We didn't use the young particles out there. We used all the things up and then we threw things away and we didn't bother about it. And it's no good just me as an individual or you as a class from school thinking about it. But when you have the great companies thinking about this, then we're getting something. I'll ask you, what's the other important thing about having a company like DuPont here in Northern? What does DuPont give you apart from LIPA? Yes, chemical to do with medicine, but something much more close, well, medicine is close to your home if you will. But what does DuPont provide here in Northern Ireland? Does anyone's dad or mum work for DuPont? They provide jobs, don't they? And what do jobs do? Jobs provide you with money. The money allows you to buy clothes and all the food you need. So it's, you see, not that long ago, in fact all the people, when people first came to Northern Ireland, it was completely covered with forest. And it was a very difficult place to get about it. And you walked along and you couldn't see the views, there were no views, The place you saw a view was when you got on the cliffs, on the end, and you said, wow, look at that view. There's a sea out there, and you looked inland, and there were all trees everywhere. There were no roads, so you had to force your way through the trees. No supermarket. You had to hunt and you had to shoot and you had to fish. It was a very, very different world. And then people suddenly started using chemicals. The first chemical they ever used, which was very useful, was a speckled stone. And they didn't find the stone here in Northern Ireland. They found it in the Lake District. It was a marvellous hard stone which they polished. You made axes out of this. A stone is made out of silica, another chemical, oxygen and hydrogen, so some of the things I have in me are also in that stone. And what do you think they did with the stone? Because they even thought with it in those days, but they chopped trees down. And then up, where the trees had been, up came grass, and they fed their animals, and they invented farming. And then the farmers chopped more and more trees down all over the place. And now, of course, Ireland has one of the worst records in the whole of Europe for trees. They've lost all their trees. But thank goodness, thanks to the conservation volunteers who've got me here today, and thanks to the backing by your local government and by putting the trees back. In fact, I think we have a lot more trees now in Ireland than we did last time I was here, when I actually opened this building. I think it was 5 years ago. Basically, we're all basically working together. Right, so I'm a botanist, so you can ask me questions about plants, and I'm an ecologist, so you can ask me questions about how things work. And the one thing I can't answer is how you build a chemical factory. In fact, if I had to work DuPont, it would have probably blown up years ago. I just couldn't make it, and we wouldn't have all the good things they make. So, okay, I probably talk too much, so if there's any questions, but you have to shout because I'm getting old and I'm going deaf, and I won't wear one of those ear things. Right, so I'll start and listen. Right. I didn't catch that.
How do you mix the chemicals together?
How do you make the chemicals?
Yes.
Wow. You use energy for a start. Remember, the whole world is made, I forget how many elements there are, they're still finding one or two, but there were 96 elements when I learned chemistry, and they're down in the rocks, they're up in the atmosphere, and they're down in the sea. In fact, every chemical element on the earth is dissolved in the sea, except some of the very, very rare ones. So you could, if you wanted to make a gold ring, and you had enough energy, you could get enough gold out of the sea. And what the chemists have done, have found ways of heating up the rocks and getting the chemicals out. In fact, the first real chemical engineers in Northern Ireland were the Bronze Age people, because they had to come and find the metals which allowed them to make bronze, which were their first weapons and their swords. The Romans all had bronze swords, and they actually had bronze arms they wore. And they were the first chemical engineers, and they were the first people ever to make holes in the ground and put poison in. But well, there is a hole in the ozone layer. And now do you know what ozone is? It's a gas. Hold on, I'm going to be told. Yeah, but it's a gas, and it's O3, oxygen. Come on, let's all breathe in. We've just breathed in oxygen, and we're using it up. And very soon we're going to breathe out carbon dioxide, and that's got the oxygen. Of course, the carbon dioxide, if too much of it gets in the atmosphere, it causes a problem. But oxygen, when it goes up into the atmosphere, and it's escaping all the time, because oxygen is a chemical which weighs 32 on the scale. Up it goes, and when it gets high up in the atmosphere, ultraviolet light bumps against it, very full of energy, and turns it into O3. So it's a little bit heavier. So it's up there, and then the gravitational pull of the Earth holds the O3 up there. Can't hold the oxygen, that's all the time escaping into the outer atmosphere. So thank goodness we're making more of it all the time down here, else we'd die. But when it gets suddenly turned into O3, it's a bit heavier, so it hangs about and forms this amazing film called the ozone layer. And what does it do? You were telling me, it absorbs ultraviolet. Now, if we get too much ultraviolet, what happens to it? Yeah, we get sunburn, we need to get cancer. It's a very, very nasty thing, ultraviolet. And so this is very protective, and it's not very thick at all. And the trouble is, the chemical industry did make something called CFCs, and it was a very, very useful chemical, because it was completely inert. So you got this stuff and you could do anything with it. And it didn't hurt anyone, it didn't react with anything at all. But we didn't know, it didn't get on very well with ozone. So it started breaking down the ozone. And we got holes in the ozone layer. And there's too much ultraviolet light through, and we could all get sunburned very, very quickly. Now we don't know how long there have been holes like this, because we only started studying it in about 1950. Suddenly someone was looking and said, oh, there's a big hole here. And then CFCs, the chemical that destroys the ozone, were banned. And theoretically they are now banned across the world. And as people, CFCs are used in refrigerators, and if they escape out of the refrigerator and get up there, then they've got problems. So again, the chemical company are working, and I do believe here in Northern Ireland, certainly where I live in England, there is a group who come out and take your refrigerators and take away the ozone and deal with it properly. Okay, problem, but you think that there's another question. There's one over there again.
What do you care most about?
Right?
What do you care most about?
What do I like most about nature? Well, it's complicated and I don't understand it. Wherever you go in the world, I'm an East Ender, I was brought up in London. The first nature I actually really saw was in London Zoo. I saw an elephant there at that time. So I saw sparrows, and when Hitler knocked houses down with his bombs, right? The whole lots and lots of beautiful plants grew up, and that's the first place I ever saw kestrels and sparrows and things, because there was space for these things to live. And I think that got me into it. My dad, you talk about chemicals, my dad was a pharmacist, so he made medicines. And back in those days, most of the medicine were made of plants, bits and pieces. He had a shop full of drawers and drawers full of bits and pieces of plants. And when he came home from work, I always knew when he come in the front door, I could smell these plants on, you know. And Dad had come home, and all those plants actually went into making medicine. And I think it was that. And when he retired, I used to go walking with him up in the mountains in Wales, and I say, that's actually a plant. He would tell me how it was used to make medicine. No, it's very, very interesting. I do actually think animals are probably a bit cleverer than the people, because they don't have to have very practice, and they can just get on with it, have a wonderful time, basically. We complicate life. Sorry? Oh, goodness. What will I do? I don't suppose it'll be all that much different to what it is now. I think we won't have any more atomic power stations. I think all our energy will be produced from wave power. You have seen the windmills they started putting up to generate electricity. Well, they don't generate much electricity at all. Because now here we've got to get very scientific. The wind isn't that dense. It blew very hard last night, and they had to stop all those windmills now because they've got blown over. Because they're not very dense full of energy. So it's quite good to have, if you have a caravan or a house, with a windmill on top of it, an aero generator. That's a good idea. But trying to produce vast amounts of energy from it, thousands, in fact millions of things. In fact, you've seen all the pictures of the wind farms in America, have you? Thousands, they're all falling to pieces. They are not looking after anymore because nobody ever made any money out of building them. You know, if you're going to build something which costs a lot of money, then you've got to get it right. Now, waves, who's never swum in the sea? You know, when you're in the sea, you know, when a wave hits you, that dense energy. Now, you imagine if you can turn that into electricity. And as I, about 4 years ago, I had a letter, and the letter said, I have invented a wave power machine. And 100 square miles of the wave machine, that's only 10 miles by 10 miles, will produce all the base load electricity for Europe. I said, he's mad, he's a nutcase. And I looked at the bottom, and he was a Nobel laureate. He's the man, and that's the highest of all the scientists can get. He's already got a Nobel Prize for inventing the piezoelectric crystal. We all played in watches and things. So I thought, well, he's not a nutcase. So I read on, and he's actually cracked it. He has his wave machine. It's now being tested by the American Navy, because the American Navy are no longer allowed to take diesel fuel into coral reefs, because if you let diesel fuel out into coral reefs, it kills the coral animals. So they have gone over using wave power. So just imagine it, we don't have to power station burning fossil fuel, you don't get that top up there. We don't have to have windmills all over the place. We actually have wave power out to sea. And it's the most amazingly simple thing you ever did. See, it is just a series of gigantic buoys about the size of the Albert Hall, if you know how big the Albert Hall is. About bigger than the Millennium Dome in London. Well, a very clever idea in here. And they just float in the sea. And they are tethered to the bottom. And as they float, they rock back, and they're all computerized. And they are generating electricity the whole time. So I believe our energy will come from waves. And then we've got real problems because we we've got lots and lots of energy, and then we can start doing other things. There can be energy which won't affect the environment.